uh, 2, and it's apologies. So, Colin, have we any apologies on?
Yes, Mayor, we do. We have apologies from Liz Loughran at the Department for Infrastructure. We also have apologies from the Vice Chancellor, Paul Bartholomew at Ulster University. On the call today is Pro-Vice Chancellor Terry Scott and Professor Malachy O'Neill. We also have apologies from the Trust. Seamus Ward is representing the Trust here today. Apologies are from Teresa Malloy. We have apologies from Councillor Paul Gallagher and also from Jennifer McKeever.
Thank you for that there, Colin. Members, any other apologies you're aware of? Okay, members, moving on to Agenda 3, Declaration of Interest. If you have any declarations, could you let me know now or put it on the chat box? No declarations. Okay, members, moving on to Agenda 4, the minutes of the meeting on the 22nd of October. Is there any matters arising?
Chair, if I could just come in there, if that's okay, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
Just you'll note from the minutes, members, that there was a discussion in relation to a workshop to discuss the MASM cap at the last Northwest or the North Strategic Growth Partnership. And Ulster University have come in and have made an offer around that. So just to let the partnership know that we will be arranging that. I think the Ulster University want to do that in person. And obviously, since we last met in October, obviously we've had the Omicron variant and we've been dealing with that over Christmas. And I think the university want to do an in-person briefing. So we will be working over the spring to arrange that for the partnership. So just to let the partnership know, Mayor, that we've been following that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Rachel. Any other members on matters arising? Okay, members, could I have a proposer or seconder for the meeting held on the 22nd October?
Happy to propose, Mayor.
Thank you, John. And a seconder?
I'll second that, Mayor John Boyle.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Okay, members, I see. Moving on now to Agenda 5, I'm going to pass on to Pauline. Pauline?
This is an extensive paper, members, in relation to the strategic growth plan. Pass now to Rachel, who's going to present.
Thank you, co-chairs. So the purpose of this report in front of you today is to seek the partnership's approval on the revised strategic growth plan, which is attached at Appendix 1 in your packs, which has been reviewed and updated following a period of significant stakeholder engagement. And obviously it's in line with the legislation associated with community planning. Part 10 of the Local Government Act states that we have a statutory duty to review the plan as a partnership before the 4th anniversary of the date in which the community plan was published. And we've also received updated guidance, as you're aware, members, which was previously tabled at this partnership, which was issued in March, which said from the Department for Communities, which said that we had to conduct a formal review of the community plan by April 2022. So members, you may remember that in February of last year, this partnership endorsed its approach to the review, and we agreed that we would focus on 3 broad elements. First of all, the governance and partnership structures associated with community planning, and also the actions, whether they were still fit for purpose or whether we needed to add or amend to them, and also to look at the use of data. So over the past year, we have been doing a significant level of engagement and consultation with our citizens, with yourselves as partner organisations, and with businesses. really just to inform the review. And that has included over 300 engagements with key stakeholders. We've been doing one-to-ones with yourselves on the call. We've been working with outcome delivery partners. We've also been meeting with the Equality and Scrutiny Group. We've also had input into the Rural Issues Symposium. We've also issued online surveys. We did a qualitative survey, which was based on the 3 themes: the partnership, the actions, and the data. And we also launched a citizen-based survey, which helped us to sort of prioritize the actions, because the feedback that we had received prior to was that there was a sense that we needed to set a priority within the plan. So the engagement feedback has been categorized along with those themes, and I have discussed it with you at the last meeting, and it's summarized in your packs in table 1. So following this partnership's endorsement of the feedback received to date at our last meeting in October, we've now undertaken an editorial review of the plan and the content, reviewed the plan and the content to sort of refresh it, make it a wee bit more modern, to amend it and update it based on the feedback received to date. So a revised draft strategic growth plan is therefore attached at Appendix 1 for your consideration and approval. In summary, some of the changes to the plan include the main change specifically is really we needed to reflect the trend towards an aging population, and we received significant feedback from older people throughout, really since 2017, that they felt that they didn't see a place for themselves in the plan. So we have amended and included an outcome now, which is we have a caring society which supports people through their lives. And this reflects the outcome within the programme for government, actually, which was just launched of late. And it brings our outcomes now to 9, which is similar to the number of outcomes in the new outcomes or the framework within the programme for government. We also have moved, as you can see, to prioritise actions. So each outcome now has 3 or 4 priority actions per outcome. We also have moved to include all the details of the innovation and regeneration projects associated with the City Deal and Inclusive Future Fund, because that's been a new initiative that has came about since we published the plan back in 2017, and is a key driver, obviously, for the implementation of the strategic growth plan. And we've also amended it to reflect the key policy priorities in the landscape now. So we've moved on to talk about COVID recovery, and the narrative now moves to show, rather than to a time of progress and a time of recovery, as opposed to a time of opportunity and a time for a new story, which would have been back in 2017. You can see within the plan we have more focus now on climate resilience, and that we have aligned the outcomes to the Sustainable Development Goals. We also, in terms of the data within the plan, have changed it to reflect the progress on our social, economic and environmental indicators, being very mindful that the census data is due to be published at the end of this year. And obviously that may significantly or may not significantly change the policy planning landscape. So we didn't want to date the plan reflecting on old data, which would have been out of date by the end of this year. So the focus on the data within the plan now moves to how the plan is delivering, and we've used our statement of progresses from 2019 and 2021 to show how we have been closing the gap. Us community planners are always keen to see where Darian Staban is performing vis-a-vis the Northern Ireland average. And you'll be aware we've been tracking that since 2017. So you'll see within the plan now we have evidence in relation to how we've closed the gap in relation to our employment rate, our economic inactivity, our death rate, admission rate for alcohol and social dwelling completions. The challenges section has also been reviewed. We have updated the interdependencies and risks, obviously now with the City Deal funding arrangement, obviously that has been updated. We also have moved now to focus more on delivery partnerships, and the new work with the Rural Issues Group and also the Anti-Poverty Task and Finish Group is now featured within the plan, because they're new initiatives that have come about since 2017. You can see also in terms of the photography, we commissioned new photography for the plan, and we wanted it to reflect the progress has been made since the plan has been published in 2017. So you can see that in there. So Really today, co-chairs, subject to the views and approval of members within this partnership, I would seek that this plan is endorsed and open for a 9-week period of public consultation. And we have a draft consultation programme attached to Appendix 2 for your consideration. And over the next 9 weeks, we're still open. We're in the editorial process. You know, we would welcome feedback from members of the partnership and also wider citizens and society in relation to whether this plan fits their needs up to 2026. Because at 2026, then we'll have to introduce a new plan, which will lead us up to 2041, which, as you know, aligns to the legislation which says that we have to have a long-term plan. So subject to members' views today, co-chair, it is recommended that the partnership approve the draft revised strategic growth plan attached to Appendix 1 and that we issue now the plan for a period of 9-week public consultation so that we can put it to the Department for Communities for April 2022. Thank you, co-chairs.
Rachel, for that. And just to say, if members have any comments or anything that they want to chat, please to do that. Or if you want to raise the hand. Is anybody anything? John, I see John there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I couldn't find my electronic hand, so I reverted to a physical hand, and thanks for spotting it. Can I first of all thank Rachel for the exceptional amount of work and liaising with everybody to bring this together. It really has been a lot of work to do all of that, to compile it, to put it into some to sensible order, and to try to summarize it so succinctly. Just a couple of thoughts, colleagues on the call. I think this certainly captures how we have progressed over the last 5 or 6 years. It's the first time that I can recall a plan that is so complex, that is not, you know, limited to a geography or limited to a particular organization or limited to a particular subject, but one which requires all of us to collaborate. It's the first time that I can recall going through a process where we look back 4 or 5 years after we've launched it and get a real sense that things are moving on. I think a lot of us would like to see some of the things move faster, clearly. A lot of the people that we serve would like to see some of the things move faster, clearly. But I think the evidence is showing that quite a few of the things that we set out to achieve in 2015, 2016 are moving. The detailed analysis of what is complete, what has taken place, what is on track, or indeed those things that aren't moving is there for everybody to see. So I think, first of all, not that, you know, we're not used to patting each other in the back, but I think we should reflect that things have moved on considerably through this type of collaborative working, and that's not a space that we should take for granted. That's because of the huge hard work that has gone into all of us working in this. So I think it's right that we reflect that progress in this review. I think it's also then right that we take time to adjust course. If there are things that have come in that Rachel has talked about through the consultation, that we need to capture them, and hopefully they are adequately captured, and that we do still need to have a key delivery focus. We are reflecting and we are outlining what we're actually going to do, as opposed to just themes. And I think that's what has differentiated this community plan from some of the other community plans, is that we have been action oriented. And I think that's been well received. So it's always difficult to put ourselves out there. It's always difficult, particularly in this multi-agency, multi-statutory, multi-sectoral space, to put a plan out there. So I would just reinforce what Rachel has said. We have a period of 9 weeks or so during which we can still amend this plan. So if every single person on this call, if every organisation who's part of the partnership could take a little bit of time just to zone in on the draft document, see what's relevant to their own organisation, and please feedback if the wording is incorrect. Please feedback if there's something more certain we can say, or if indeed you're being attributed to the delivery of an action that you know simply can't be achieved, then feed that back to us as well, so that we can say something different, we can communicate something more clearly. Because we are being measured on our performance, and we do want to ensure its continued success. So it's we do need to be clear that we're comfortable with the wording and the actions. So if we've missed anything, please incorporate it. And if we're inaccurate in something, please point it out, because ultimately this is our plan. This is not the council's plan, as we've said on many occasions. This is our collective plan. It's broadly working to date, and it's a great record of achievement. So I would be really grateful if you would take that time to come back to us. Thank you, Chair.
Roisin has come in chat function there to glad to see that outcomes and actions in older people. So thank you, Roisin, and just to reiterate what John said there's a lot of work that has went in behind the scenes by Rachel and the wider team just to get to this stage, and it's good that we're at this stage now. As Rachel said, it's really from next week to go out and to start the 9-week consultation process. So what we're asking members today is for proposer and seconder to start that process. I have a proposer, please. Sorry, Malachy there. See Malachy's hand. Are you happy to propose?
Yeah, Pauline, I just wanted to add that I would agree entirely with what John and has said and what Roisin has contributed via the chat. And just to flag that for the past couple of years, the university has been part of a global network of age-friendly campuses. So I think that aligns very well with this particular strand of the strategy, and Roisin herself has played a key role in that partnership as well. I think it's worth flagging the lifelong learning emphasis of the UNESCO Learning City programme as well, that the university with council and regional college have championed in recent times as well. But I think both are very well aligned with this particular strand of the strategy, so it's most welcome.
Thanks, Malachy. Thanks for those comments. Malachy, are you happy to propose then?
Yeah, happy to propose.
That's great, thank you. And then ask for a seconder, please.
Pauline, I'll be happy to second it. Linda Watson.
That's great, and I see there Roisin as well. Thank you, and I see there Fiona has a comment in there as well. So thanks, Fiona, for that there. Thanks everyone for that, and I'm just going to pass now to the next co-chair. Next item, please.
I think the mayor's taking this one.
Just check the mayor's still on, because I know he has another meeting to go to. He's go to Staban, so in his absence, maybe if it's okay that we could just run to agenda item 6, which is Erin McPheely. Erin, I know you're on the call. I can see you there.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks very much. And thanks to members for having me here today. This is my first time at the Strategic Growth Partnership. So just to introduce myself, my name's Erin McPheely and I'm the Chief Exec of Developing Healthy Communities. And for anyone that might not be familiar with our organisation, we're a third sector organisation based in Darian Staban that's played a strategic role supporting and promoting the health and well-being of people and communities for 30 years this year. And we do this by connecting people across sectors and areas of interests, championing collaboration and innovation. And we run a number of projects which play a part in advocating, influencing and capacity building in order to tackle health inequalities. I don't know who's moving the slides for me, but if you could just move along to the next slide, that's great. Thank you. So today I'm here to talk to you about the Darian Staban Healthy City and District Initiative. Our organisation coordinates and facilitates that initiative. Healthy Cities is a political and value-driven network. It drives innovation and collaborative responses to tackling health inequalities at a local level by drawing on international best practice. It's a holistic model and it focuses on the wider determinants of health. And much like the Strategic Growth Partnership itself, it's a shared and partnership initiative. It's not one that belongs to our organisation, but belongs to the wider civic partnership that oversees it. It's high level and it's a multi-agency agenda. And so in that way, we see it very much as aligned to the strategic agendas in the city and district, including the Inclusive Strategic Growth Plan and the City Deal Fund. Our application for designation to phase 7 of the network was passed by the Council's Health and Community Committee in the autumn, and the application is currently with the World Health Organization, and we expect to hear back from them in the spring. So that means that we're making plans for a new stage in the work of the Healthy Cities designation, which includes closer alignment with the Strategic Growth Partnership, which is the purpose of my report today. I thought it might be helpful to run through the background of this project for any of you who may not know much about it yet or who maybe need an update. So next slide, please. Just to begin with a short snapshot of the history of Healthy Cities. Darian Staban Healthy Cities has a long and proud history, which began in 1982 with the establishment of our organisation, which was then known as the Derry Healthy Cities Project. And this was established as a cross-sector approach to tackling health inequalities. And that mission is still as relevant as ever today, as I'm sure you're all aware. And you can see from the slide that Derry City and Strabane District designated to the World Health Organization European Healthy Cities Network back in 2009. And since then, we have successfully completed phase 5 and phase 6 of the designation. And if all goes according to plan, following a pause in designations due to COVID, sometime this spring, we'll again be a fully designated World Health Organization Healthy City for phase 7, and that runs until 2025. And it's just, I guess, worth saying that I'm, as the Chief Exec of Developing Healthy Communities, also the named Healthy Cities Coordinator for Darian Staban with the World Health Organization. Next slide, please. So there are lots of benefits to being a member of this programme, and they're outlined in the report, but they can broadly, I guess, be broken down into 2 categories, global and local, and I've described some of those there on the slide. By being a member of the network, we have access to international learning through being part of a global network. It also offers us a platform to showcase our local innovation. And on a local level, it offers us the opportunity to connect across sectors and to draw on best practice and develop new ways of doing things. It also, I think, importantly, demonstrates our area's commitment and leadership on tackling health inequalities. And I'd say particularly in the context of driving our recovery from COVID-19, Healthy Cities really provides an ideal framework, very much demonstrating that health and economy are 2 sides of the same coin. And we know now more than ever that health's everyone's business. And as you'll see from the framework, which I'll get to in the coming slides, Healthy Cities provides this holistic context for how we think about building health and wellbeing in our city and district. Next slide, please. So not to go over in detail the context that we're working in here locally when it comes to health. here are just, I guess, some examples and reminders of our health stats. And you won't be able to pick out the detail on the page from the 2021 Northern Ireland Health Inequalities Annual Report, but it says that more than half of the measures included where our health outcomes are worse than the national average. We also know that life expectancy in our most deprived areas is 5.3 years less than the average across our district for men and 2.9 years less for women. And we know that those factors driving health outcomes are diverse and they need a holistic approach. And we know that some of them are long recognised, like our economic health, but there are also other emerging risks, like the potential impacts of a changing climate, which are important to consider, as are the emerging opportunities. And I know that all of that is reflected in the strategic growth plan as well. So next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of the World Health Organization Healthy Cities model. And you can see it here on the screen. It's built around the 6 Ps: people, planet, place, participation, peace, and prosperity. So you can see, even before we go into detail, the comprehensive view it takes of public health and health improvement, considering everything from environmental health to economic prosperity to social factors. It also acknowledges, and I've put up some words from the World Health Organization framework there, that a healthy city isn't necessarily a city with outstanding health. It's a city that's doing everything it can to understand and improve the health of its citizens in a structured and considered way. So designation and the work of healthy cities is not about creating a new plan. It's about presenting our commitment to tackling health inequalities through cross-sector working and innovation. And that's what we set out to do in our application for Phase 7 designation. Next slide, please. And luckily, we had lots to work with, and our task has been to showcase the fantastic work that many of you are involved in one way or another, which is aligned to the World Health Organization's framework. We were able to present the principles and actions from the documents listed on this slide, as well as many more. And we also had some great examples of good practice to bolster the application and show how we're working in ways that will create a better environment for healthy lives. So there's really too much in the application to name check every plan and project, but I would encourage you, if you do have time, to read the full application, because it really makes you proud of the great work that's going on across the city and district, and we're hoping that the World Health Organization will think that too. So next slide, please. This is really talking about what the next stage of the project might look like between achieving designation and entering the next phase of the network in 2025. And successful Healthy Cities designation really presents an opportunity for us to display Derry City and Straban's commitment to population health and embed healthy city principles for the duration of Phase 7. But to achieve this and to maximise the potential of our designation, we really need the right strategic guidance and position. So following approval of the proposal that the Healthy Cities Steering Group should be aligned to the Strategic Growth Partnership as the appropriate cross-sector partnership body for oversight. The Healthy Cities Coordinator will be represented on the partnership, which is something that I think is a really positive step. And it's also worth considering that some members may want to join a more active, smaller group, which would maintain a more active involvement in the Healthy Cities programme. We really want to find ways of maximising the potential impact of the Healthy Cities designation, including its visibility and branding in the city and district. So just on to the final slide, where I've tried to outline some of the ways that we've been doing that to date and ways that we are keen to grow our activity in this area in the coming months and years. So just some examples. We've been holding regular online and in-person events, connecting leaders across sectors who are working across a range of interests which are pertinent to the Healthy Cities agenda. So for example, our Healthy Cities conference took place last year and included inspirational contributions from academics, business leaders, community leaders, who were all reflecting on how their work was focused on building healthier communities through building prosperity, unlocking the potential of our people and protecting our planet. We've also run a number of other issue-specific events focused on issues that are at the forefront or breaking new ground on health inequalities. So for example, in partnership with the Council, at the end of last year, we ran a webinar examining the links between autism and mental health. Also depicted there is a hybrid event that brought together council colleagues with colleagues from the Department for Communities, Health Services and community leaders, all looking at the issue of poverty and food poverty in our area. So we found these events to be popular, well attended, and participants have feedback that they are really useful for networking, building collaboration and developing shared learning around an issue. We've also been delivering demonstration projects which promote and showcase the 6 Ps. One which took place recently delivered custom wellbeing activities to local workplaces who were chosen for their good work during the pandemic, and which demonstrated the principles of the World Health Organization's Healthy Workplace Framework and model. And we want to continue to build a local network and community that can draw on opportunities and expertise arising from the World Health Organization European Healthy Cities Network. So if you're not in touch with our work already, I would really encourage you to join our mailing list, follow us on social media, and hopefully take up the opportunity to attend one of our events or engage in the wider World Health Organization network. So that's really it from me. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair, if there's time, or my contact details are there on the slide.
I'm sorry, thanks, Erin. I'm conscious that the mayor's just left the call. So maybe if I could, if Pauline or Gavin are on, we might want to take this, or Kenny even, just for questions.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take it. Is any partners? I see Jim. Jim, you might be on mute.
Okay, sorry for that. Erin, thanks very much for that presentation. Just a quick suggestion here. I'm part of the rural issues group, and I know the term healthy cities implies it's city focused, and I know that's not necessarily the case, but it might be worthwhile at some stage tying in within a McGillion there, which might facilitate the same presentation to the rural issues group, just to make sure that you know, it has a wider remit rather than simply what the name suggests. Thanks, Erin.
Yes, very, very happy to do that. And you know, we're very aware that we're not just a healthy city, we're a healthy city and district in Darian Staban. And the detail of the application and the situational analysis hopefully reflects some of our rural context as well. But yeah, more than happy if there's an opportunity to go to that meeting with the event.
Okay, thanks, Erin.
Okay, thanks, Erin. Any other questions for Erin or any comments from any partners?
Chair, John Kelpie.
John, yeah.
Just to thank Erin for the presentation, Chair, firstly, and I have briefly read through the application because it is so extensive. Erin, I have to congratulate you on the linkages that you've made with all of the various plans in the city and district, and how you've woven all of that together in the application. I think it makes for an exceptionally strong application. So, I mean, I think from council perspective, we would offer you our full support in taking this forward. And I think you know, obviously, just pick it up on Jim's point. the title of the designation is Healthy City, but certainly in the application form, you've very adequately demonstrated that it is across the entirety of the council district. So I just think you asked people if they had a chance to quickly look at it. I'll certainly be setting this application aside and using some of the wording in it, if you don't mind, for other applications we're making. It's so comprehensive in its referencing of the wider strategic objectives. So congratulations with it, and wish you all the best in taking it forward.
Thank you,
And
John.
just
Professor
to-
Scott.
Oh, sorry, just to say, take that opportunity to thank all our members of the Developing Healthy Communities team that really supported the development of that application, because it certainly wasn't all my work.
Terry.
Okay, thanks. And Erin, I'd add my congratulations. It's an excellent presentation and really helpful to get that insight. I think one of the things that's interesting, the 5 Ps, the university is developing its strategy and just finalising it. We're going with 3 Ps, people, place and partnerships. So it's good that we're all on the same track and under sort of the overarching title or banner of Sustainable Futures. I think one thing that is very relevant, and maybe we could draw this out, would be the move of the health sciences programs and the associated well-being initiatives that are going to be coming focused in the city through the university program with all of the allied health profession courses and the students. So that gives a basis for a lot of additional activity and focus in the council area. So very happy to pick up with you outside of this meeting, Malachy and myself, to give you a brief on that.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. Any comments or questions from Terry from anybody else? I don't see any further hands. So it's obviously just for, I think everyone's in agreement that the partnership are happy to endorse the work that Erin has done in her presentation today. Collectively, Erin, congratulate you and your team on the work that you've done. It's a phenomenal piece of work that's been highlighted by members already. And look, we thank you and look forward to hearing how it develops in the future, and well done. Thank you. So I'll now pass over to my co-chair, Kenny, who'll take item number. No, it's actually a pass over to myself. Item number 7 is mine. So our next presentation is from Mark Deeney from the Western Area Command for the Fire and Rescue Service, and this is currently out for consultation for the realignment of the fire and rescue search to be in line with local government authorities. So the consultation is to be in for April, and it's really for information for members today. So I'll hand over to Mark. Mark, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members, for the opportunity to present today.
Mark, your sound is a bit. Mark, if I could just, your sound is a bit. Your microphone might be very clear there at the minute. You're not really coming through clearly.
Okay, is it breaking up, or is it just
yeah, it's breaking up quite badly.
Yeah, it's breaking up.
You having headphones you could use?
Is that any better? Let me just try that. How is that now?
Still quite crackly.
Aye. Have another go, Mark. Just if it doesn't work this time, maybe.
Can you hear me now?
Have another go, Mark. This time, maybe. Yeah.
You want to try it now, Mark?
How's that now? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mark.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. So look, I'm also joined in the call by Lisa Garrick, who is the HR business partner for the West as well. So I'm the area commander for Western Area Command, which currently covers effectively this council area, Mid Ulster and Fermanagh and Oban district, and a bit on the Causeway Coast and Glens as well. I suppose the point of this presentation is just partly to realign that structure to make it a bit more functional. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. Okay, so the purpose of today is to inform partners of the consultation and the proposals within it, just allow us to engage with yourselves and vice versa, and to see what any impacts you may perceive to be locally within the council area, and to sort of collect feedback and responses from yourselves, and we feed that into the process for the final outcome, if you like. Next slide, please. So just by way of overview, there's been some change in the organisation already, and this realignment of district structures is a continuation of that. So in September, we had the appointment of a new Chief Fire and Rescue Officer. His name is Peter O'Reilly. And we subsequently then have made some changes at a senior structure in the organisation. So the executive leadership team structure has been changed. It consists of a Director of Finance, a Deputy Chief Fire and Rescue Officer, an Assistant Chief Fire and Rescue Officer, and a Director of People and Culture, as well as a Chief Fire and Rescue Officer. So each of those obviously have their functional roles and responsibilities aligned to their directorates. What we are working on at the minute is a comprehensive review of our community risk profile across Northern Ireland, and that will help inform what our response model looks like in the future in terms of Red Fleet, for example, and also in terms of what's called flexible duty system officers. So officers who would respond to support operational incidents and manage those. And we're also looking at reviewing and designing our current headquarters, the Learning Development Centre, and our support centre functions. And that would include alignment and reporting and accountability within districts and stations. So at the minute, we have got 13 districts across Northern Ireland, and they sit within 4 area commands. They aren't currently co-terminus with councils, or with, for example, the policing areas and districts, and they don't currently align either to, for example, emergency preparedness group alignment either. So again, it's just about trying to align as many of those, if you like, functional areas as we can to allow better accountability, better streamlining reporting, better partnership working. And the idea is that we will remove, if you like, that area structure. We'll remove those 4 area structures and go to district commands aligned to each of the 11 district councils, and each of those districts will in turn have a district commander or a community risk manager to support. We currently have within each of those districts, that we currently have in the West. So for example, in the West at the minute, in the Western Area Command, we would have a district in sort of Derry, Londonderry area. We have got a district in Omagh. We have an Enniskillen district, and we also have a district. So this realignment will effectively do away with that area structure, and we will have those 3 council areas, if you like, will become the districts in their own right then. So with Derry, City and Strabane, Fermanagh and Omagh, and Ulster. So it will go from 4 to 3. And within each of those, we have stage commanders who currently look after functional roles, for example, personnel and training, community protection, prevention and protection. And what we will do, and they would also look after, for example, response and resilience or operational response. So what we will do is, rather than have individuals looking after those individual functions, those, if you like, will be combined, so that each of those people will manage a station or a group of stations each, and they will manage all those functions across each of those stations. Next slide, please. So the intention is the reason for making this change is that they will align with the council boundaries to remove duplication. And by introducing a single district commander or a single risk manager for the district, then we will have a clear point of contact for partner agencies, and also a single point of contact for reporting, whereas now we have a number of different points of contact. And then it'll allow us to fully integrate into the community planning process. So it'll give us a more localized, risk-based approach to service delivery. And we can then work more collaboratively with our partners like yourselves to enhance the delivery of a better service. We can also utilise that for better signposting to other services of vulnerable groups, for example, people who are isolated in the community, people who are elderly, people with disabilities, people with different social needs as well. So we can hopefully become part of the more involved in the signposting of people to services to support them. And also as well for changing culture, and that reference to potentially widen the firefighter roadmap is effectively a nod towards broadening the duties of a firefighter beyond what we currently do, which sit within our legislative requirement. So an example of that might be, and there's some publicity around that at the moment, you'll be aware of that, no doubt, maybe about emergency medical response, particularly in some rural areas to start with. And then it also allows us to effectively manage our stations. So we have clear lines of accountability, gives a bit more autonomy to the district commanders as well. They work better locally with partner agencies, for example. So it's about driving down that decision-making responsibility, a bit more decentralised, if you like, but also very much aligned to the centre in terms of policy, and also about improving relationships, as I've said, between partners. Next slide, please. So the consultation proposal will consist of, it's proposing that we move from 13 district commands as I've outlined to 11, which will align with each of the council areas. And within that, then we will have stations realigned accordingly. So an example of that might be, at the minute we have got, so within Derry district, for example, we would have the likes of Northland Fire Station, Crescent Link Fire Station. We would also have Lavalley and Dungiven, but with this realignment, Lavalley and Dungiven will move into Holiday Coast and Glens. And at the minute, we also have, for example, Cascade and Newton Stewart would sit within the Omagh district, but they will now move within the Derry City and Strabane district to align with the council boundary. So, as I mentioned before, the district command remit will change as well. So officers will have responsibility for managing a station or a number of stations individually, which is a move away from their current functional role across several stations. So again, more accountability, better management of that. And the new district commander will take on the primary contact role for the respective council area. So that will mean that, for example, rather than being, we do have district commanders at the moment, but because of the lack of coterminosity, it's a bit fractured. So this will help to, if you like, align that. And then, I suppose, probably in anticipation of a positive public response, we've looked at designing the following changes. The station locations will identify a parent district, which I've kind of talked about that realignment of stations within the council areas. And if you move to the next slide, please, you'll be able to see exactly what I mean by that. So you can see there, as I've mentioned, Northland, Crescent Link, Strabane, Newton Stewart, and Castleberg will all sit within the Derry City and Strabane district going forward, which aligns to the council footprint as well. And what I would say, I suppose, at this stage is that this is effectively about a realignment of administrative boundaries and about the functional responsibilities internally within each of those administrative boundaries. So what you won't see is any detriment to operational response, for example, from any of those fire stations that you can see on the map there. And in fact, the idea then is to further enhance, if you like, that local accountability, that local engagement, that local partnership working. So the idea would be actually that we would see an improvement in service delivery, because with improved local knowledge would come the ability to better target but more vulnerable groups, drive down risk accordingly, and hopefully contribute to the wider objective of creating a safer community within each of the district council areas. Next slide, please. So you can see the next steps we will present to our board on the 22nd of this month, and we just continue with the design and plan and implementation process, and we will also develop an equality and rural impact assessment, and we'll just go through that approvals process beyond that, which I think is outlined in the document that you may have seen in the slide in the meeting pack. And effectively what that will do, it means is that once we go through the consultation process, it has to be submitted to the Minister, and the Fire and Rescue Service sits within Health, so it will be the Minister for Health who will approve that. And beyond that, we will look at appointing district commanders or community risk managers, as I've called them, and then we will advise the councils, yourselves accordingly, of who those appointees are. We will have to do some internal realignment of people to facilitate this, and that's a piece of work that Lisa, who's also on the call, we'll be happy to answer any questions if you may have any, and beyond that, I'm happy to answer any of the larger questions around that. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. And that concludes the presentation, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for that. So as Mark has highlighted, this is out for consultation, and Council will respond to this by April. But if any members have any questions for Mark for him to answer, and any comments that any partners would like to make, will be taken into account and will form part of our response to the consultation. So if anyone has any questions or comments, it's like that. Jim, you're first with the hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Mark, thanks for that presentation. I'm very much welcomed. I note in a couple of your slides you've referred to collaborative working and enhanced partnership working, as well as looking at the equality and rural impact assessment. In terms of the practicalities of taking those suggestions forward, how do you propose to do that? Mark?
Thanks. The quality impact assessment will be conducted internally, if you like, and so we will use I suppose we'll look at the impact that would be. So, for example, we'll consider if there's any detrimental impact to this realignment in terms of the rural community in particular, and to ensure that we're providing the right level of response to that community. And that's something we will look at internally, and it's also as a part of the consultation. So if you feel that there may be a negative impact on the rural community, for example, we'd very much welcome that within the consultation process. If there's an opportunity there, I think, to add on any extra comments that you may feel are appropriate to that. In terms of the collaborative working and improving that in the partnership enhancement, with the appointment of the district commander, so we already do work very much in partnership with other agencies, including councils, including police, including ambulance, and in particular through, for example, community planning function. We also work through the emergency preparedness groups as well, and we would also engage with the police and partnerships, for example. So that work will continue, but the idea behind this realignment would be that becomes a lot more effective, because at the minute we would have a number of officers, or one officer attending a number of different groups, and they may not align with the council boundaries, or with the emergency preparedness group boundaries, for example, or with the policing districts. So you end up with different people attending different meetings, It's not very efficient, and I suppose things can get lost in translation in that regard. And it also means that by going down this route, that we will remove that duplication of effort, if you like, and it'll provide a single point of contact for any of those constituent partnership groups, so that it's clear what the lines of reporting are, what the lines of accountability are, and what the lines of communication are.
Mark, I appreciate what you just said there, and I think a lot of people would not necessarily be aware of this consultation. So could I just suggest that some contact is made with the chairs of the local growth partnerships to make them aware of the consultation and see if you can get feedback from that line. I think it's important the community groups are aware of what you're doing and also your intentions in the future. Because it is a public service, and I'm sure you want to make it as efficient as possible. So I would maybe suggest that that contact is made in some manner, and maybe somebody from council can facilitate that for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks very much.
John.
Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Martin, just in respect of your presentation. It was very informative. Maybe just picking up on that last point of Jim's, we'll be very happy to facilitate communication with the local growth partnership chairs. Quite a few of them are on this call today, but we can certainly pass you the contact information if that would help, Mark. I'm sure Rachel will be happy to do that.
Appreciate that, John. That'd be really useful. Thank you.
There's a strange delay in the call here, but so look, I think from a council perspective, I mean, anything that moves us towards coterminosity is very beneficial, especially where we're reducing where we're clearing lines of communication and reducing duplication and overlap, and all of that I think is really important, Mark. So from that perspective, I think obviously council would very much welcome it. Two probable areas of sensitivity that might be worth trying to reassure in terms of the consultation that I think might spring to mind. One would be if there is any potential diminution of the status of Crescent Link or the city service as a headquarters regionally. And the other would be, as Jim has already raised, any potential rural concerns, particular sensitivity, as you know, from our elected members in respect of the service in the Castlederg area and the concerns there. I'm not quite sure whether I don't know the operational arrangements, but I'm imagining what you're not suggesting that, in cases of emergency, services can't be provided from other council areas. I'm sure that's not the case, but just to be sure again that, if Castlederg and Newton Stewart are areas to the south of our council area were maybe previously assisted by services out of Omagh, for example, I'm sure that's still going to be the case, but maybe there's a little bit of assurance is required there in both respects, from the nature of the headquarters in Crescent Link, and also the service in the southern part of the council area.
Thanks, John. Yes, so look, each district will have its own district headquarters, and that would include the continuation of the use of Crescent Link to facilitate that. So there will still be a contingent of officers within each of the districts. So although each district will have a district commander, they will also be supported by a number of station commanders, commensurate with a number of stations, personnel, risk profile of the district that they have. So there will be continued accessibility, if you like, and availability of officers. They were both to engage with the community, deliver the service to the stations, and also to respond to operational incidents. They manage those in a safe and effective manner. So there shouldn't be any diminution of that at all. In relation to the likes of Castlederg, or more remotely how we would respond to incidents, as I said, these are administrative boundary changes. and they won't have any negative impact on our operational response to incidents, whether they be within the district or out with the district. We already have how we respond to calls at the minute, John, is that we would have what we call the predetermined attendance. So we would send a particular number and type of appliances to different types of calls. So, for example, a house fire with people missing within it would attract 3 pumping appliances and a supervisory officer. So we'll still send that. But should that incident or any other incident require additional resources to support that, then we will bring those in from across Northern Ireland or wherever is necessary to respond to that call. And we have systems and processes in place within our regional control centre based in Lisburn, who keeps the overview of that, who mobilise accordingly to do that. And we will always mobilise the nearest available resource. And as part of that work, we're currently in the process of developing a new, if you like, mobilising system across the organisation. And we will be moving to what's called dynamic mobilising. So we will, in fact, mobilise what is the nearest operational resource to a particular incident. So it may be the case that if an incident occurs on the boundary of the station council area, and, for example, the nearest resource is Limavady, then we'll send that. Or if the nearest resource, if it's on a border of a county, then it may not necessarily be the appliance from within that district, if you like, but the requisite number of appliances will still attend, still be mobilised, and they'll be drawn from wherever we need to draw them.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, Mark, thank you for that comprehensive response. I don't see any other hands at the minute, so I'm sure everybody else is happy enough with the presentation. We will take on board your response to those questions. We'll include those in the council response, and as I said, that will be in before the end of April. And I'm sure if any members want to go back, maybe through Rachel, with any further comments or feedback, they can do that. So the council will have a complete response back in on that. But Mark, thank you very much for coming today, and thanks very much for your presentation. Greatly received.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll now hand over to my co-chair, Kenny, to take the next item on the agenda.
Thank you, Gavin. As one of the real chairs, I think the Rural Issues Group has actually been one of the real positive things that's coming out. It's maybe given us a voice that we thought we never had. But like all things, it's a challenge of actually dealing with issues. So I'll invite Una to update the partnership on the symposium and around the rural issues that came out of it.
Thank you very much, co-chair, and thank you, members, for the opportunity to come today. I know you've had a chance to look at the report, but if you don't mind, I would just like to maybe take you through some of the key points in relation to it. So as Kenny had said, we've got the Rural Issues Group now established over a year, and we've had some fantastic engagements over that period of time, and it was an opportunity to give a platform for a rural voice in terms of particular issues that needed attention. And the reason why it came in under the Strategic Inclusive Growth Partnership was that lots of the issues are actually multi-agency and actually sit outside the remit of council. So whenever we decided to look at rural symposiums, it seemed very opportune that we'd use the first one to focus on how best can you achieve rural integration. So we've had our 3 rural local growth partnerships established, and we've got our local growth plans, but we wanted to see was there other best practice and was there other types of approaches that we should maybe consider as we move forward. So you can see from the report we had a very engaging day, and our thanks to the members of the Strategic Inclusive Growth Partnership who were able to attend that event with over 60 in total. And what was very enlightening was that in the presentations that we received, that we used the Scottish model to give us a sense of how they integrated rural policy. So they don't have a rural proofing, they actually have the Scottish Government pays a rural council to actually provide research and analysis to influence policy design. So their strategies are entirely rural, so they're encompassing rural. There's no urban and there's no rural strategy. There's just a strategy, and it takes on board everything. And then we looked at how is that delivered at a programme level, and we had a fantastic presentation from Donegal County Council, and we used digital as an example in terms of a particular issue that affects not just urban and rural, but affects all citizens, and how best that they use that. And you could see very, very enlightening aspects in terms of how a policy approach and a programme approach can work very, very closely together. And then thirdly, we had rural support give us a presentation in terms of inter-agency working, which was very, very insightful in terms of how you take a particular group of people living within a rural community and how different agencies can come together to address their needs. So that was in the context of actually receiving a presentation from Rachel in terms of what's currently happening in terms of the review of the plan, but also very, very importantly hearing from the three chairs of the rural growth partnerships in terms of what has it meant for them to establish a partnership, and what has it meant for them in terms of the implementation of the local growth plan. And we had a final session with our statutory partners, which was really beneficial because some of the key issues that have been identified within the Rural Symposium, the statutory partners could offer some insight in relation to how best to respond to those. So you can see, members, in section 3, that there's particular issues that the Rural Issues Group wanted to draw to attention of the strategic partnership. And the first one was a thank you, to really thank the local growth partnership, the 3 local growth partnerships, wanting to thank the Strategic Inclusive Growth Partnership and the Council for actually forming them, because they've been so valuable in terms of being able to work within the local communities and to be able to address particular issues. And that was very evident during COVID, that without those partnerships, a lot of the support that was coming from government departments wouldn't have been delivered without that infrastructure in place. And the partners, the strategic partners were actually saying that they couldn't have delivered without them as well. So that's a really positive endorsement in terms of the approach that has been developed. And you are not surprised to hear that there's so much unrealised potential at the minute within our rural communities, that the 3 local growth partnerships have been able to identify very comprehensive plans, but unfortunately haven't been able to implement them in full. Now, in part, that has been to do with COVID, and they've had to redirect a lot of their efforts towards that. But notwithstanding that, there has been issues around resources prior to COVID, and as one of our co-chairs told us, is for the last 15 years they've been asking central government for support in terms of dedicated resources. So there's that issue in terms of how best we address resources, and I'm delighted to say that DFC have indicated that through their new People in Place review of their strategy, that they're looking to see how the rural communities can be incorporated in terms of providing particular support, and also that DAERA have identified that through their new approach, that they're actually looking to see how they can have dedicated staff based within rural communities. Both of those will take a bit of time to get implemented, and Council therefore has been looking at an interim solution, which hopefully after the rates meeting that we'll be able to give some positive indication in relation to that. So, but that's a really important aspect, because a lot of the work that the partnerships want to do are not able to do at the minute in terms of resources. So we're going to continue those conversations with DFC and DAERA in terms of making sure that the dedicated resources transpire within the next 18 months. Rural proofing was considered to be very beneficial and has delivered in terms of some key strategies coming from government departments, but there was a sense that further work was required in relation to this area, and that there were still gaps, and there was a very genuine discussion around the sense that services that people take for granted in an urban context don't exist in a rural context. And there were some examples given around youth provision, for example, community education, and also transport. So there's a real desire by the rural partners to develop collaborative projects with agencies to make sure that those services can be delivered in a sustainable way. And that brings us then to greater integration. And there was a real discussion again around government departments and government agencies in terms of the wealth of knowledge and experience that they have. And a lot of these issues, they felt that if there was more integration, could actually address some of the key issues for rural communities. So, for example, education provision, that schools could be used in terms of providing some youth activities, but also education and youth could work together in terms of addressing some of the transportation issues. So that idea of trying to work across boundaries and working across different agencies, and there were some good examples of that already in place, but the Rural Symposium identified further opportunities. And their ask of you today, members, is that you read the report that has come forward in terms of the symposium itself, that you encourage and you work with the 3 local growth partnerships in partnership with DAERA and DFC in order to mobilise this additional resource that's required for communities, and that where there's particular needs and gaps in provision, and the examples given are rural youth provision, rural community education and transportation, that within your respective organisations that you try to mobilise particular effort to unblock some of those challenges that are there at the minute. So very happy to take any questions in relation to the symposium, and thank you again for the opportunity to present the findings.
Thank you. As I say, it was really interesting, all right, and I'm sure the 3 rural chairs will agree in saying that sometimes it's be careful what you wish for. We always wish that people would listen to us. Now everybody wants to talk to us, and it puts a lot of pressure on people. But as I say, it was interesting, and I thought the whole Scotland thing was really important, because I think even the limited research that's been done and within the council area actually highlights some of that inequality. And it would be great that rather than being seen as a tag on, that rural will actually become mainstream, as you say, in Scotland. So it was positive. It certainly highlighted the challenges, and I'm sure we'll have to work together now to go forward to meet those challenges and address them. So does anybody want anything to say? John, I think your hand's up, but I don't know if it's been up since the last.
Sorry, apology, Kenny. I didn't drop it since the last time. I'll do that now.
Okay. Jim, I think you're Jim, and then David.
Just a quick comment, Chair. Unna's done a great job in some of the work now that's going on through the Rural Issues Group, and I must admit that it's been, from my point of view, anyway, it has been quite a successful initiative, and I must thank Unna for all the work she's done so far. And I would encourage anybody to sort of link in with us too, as Kenny said, in the future, because you're quite right. You know, the rural area is not necessarily a tag on now. It should be integrated with everything. And as John Kelpie says earlier on, it's all about the city and district, not necessarily just about the city. So thank you for that.
Okay, Jim. David?
I take you can hear me okay?
Yep.
Sorry, the internet's been playing up, part of the problem living in a rural area. Well, first thing I would say is I think the reports that be absolutely welcome, and I think some of the initiatives there around collaboration and everything else are absolutely excellent. But just one thing I sort of thought would be worth mentioning is I recently came across a paper that had been produced for Margaret Ritchie about 20 years ago, and the issues that were talked about in that paper are the same issues that we're talking about now. So it strikes me that, you know, we have had a lot of money spent, a lot of investment over the years, but it doesn't seem to be tackling the key issues that are coming up, because they're still fundamentally the same. And when you sort of consider that, I think one of the big issues we have is that an awful lot of the initiatives that we've run in DAERA have been quite reactive. I think they've been fairly short term. I don't think they've been strategic enough. And I don't think we've done enough around evidence and evaluation and research. So one of the things I would really ask is that, going forward, we have a much stronger focus in terms of the research that we commission to sort of get behind these issues and understand the initiatives that would actually work. And then more of an effort in terms of how we evaluate those, to sort of learn the lessons from them. And I think from our point of view, I think DARE will have quite a big role to play in that. So that is something that we're considering at the minute. And then in terms of the additional resources around rural strategy managers, things that we're doing within the department, around the Strategic Oversight Committee for the new Rural Community Business and Investment Programme, I think those are all positives as well. It should be welcome. So that was all for me.
Thank you. All right, Seamus.
Thank you, and thanks, Emma, for giving us that update on the symposium. It was really us to attend. I just want to give an update in terms of what we're working on in terms of the health and social care. The equality leads have been meeting regularly around work that we're going to be doing and to ensure rural proofing. And we've been doing a lot of research on proofing toolkit in England. And the 5 trusts have just recently agreed to fund a workshop. We're going to invite the authors over so we can work towards developing our own rural proofing for health toolkit to help us moving forward to ensure that all decisions that are made around health and social care are fully rural proof. So we're hoping over the next number of months that'll progress, and I will update members in terms of who will attend. We'll obviously look to invite as many people as we possibly can to that workshop.
Thank you, Seamus. I think, like as everybody says, I think the rural issues group allows it to be more than just council. Council has to be commended in what they've done in the council area. I know the next issue is going to be around the anti-poverty strategy, but I think if this hadn't happened, I dread to think what would have happened in rural communities if the 3 rural growth partnerships hadn't been there, because I think that it highlighted even to the partnerships and to the groups on the ground just the effect of poverty in rural areas. The thing about the issues group, I think it's important at all the statutory bodies because it's working across. I think there's quite a lot of money about. It's actually getting it to be better spent and more coordinated, and that takes everybody working together. So, I agree. We've been in it a long time, and Caroline's been in maybe even longer than myself, and we've been doing stuff to DARE, and each time the Consultation never doesn't. But we do see that there's a change now, and I think it's really positive. So look, if everybody's happy enough, that we'll move on then to the next one, which is again who'll look at the anti-poverty research that's actually happening within the council area.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Members, again, you've got a report and you've got the detailed research as well appendixed to the report. But just if you bear with me, just to give you a bit of context again, because I think it's really, really important that back at the end of 2020, our council had 2 motions. One was looking at anti-poverty and the other one was looking at a hardship fund. And there was a real desire that we would do something immediately in terms of supporting vulnerable people. And we were able to do that, and we were able to put out some support. But it really highlighted the scale of the support that was already out there and the absolutely fantastic work that the community and voluntary sector was doing, because there was lots of government interventions coming forward, but they needed that infrastructure to be able to reach really, really vulnerable people. And that for us was a key learning in terms of undertaking this research, that for any future intervention that we needed to really, really understand what was already happening out there. And it also was in the context of the Northern Ireland Executive deciding to do a new Northern Ireland anti-poverty strategy, and the fact that they had an expert panel appointed, and they also set up a co-design working group. So for us, that was really important, that whatever needs that we identified within our own council area, that we could influence what was happening at a Northern Ireland level, and also recognise that it was not one government department or not one agency that could address all of these issues in relation to poverty and vulnerability. So within the research, we looked at what you would imagine to be all the traditional indicators that would indicate about poverty. And, you know, what I suppose for all of us knowing what we know is that it's not a new issue for council area, that it's a long-standing position, and in actual fact that in some cases for some of our areas poverty has got worse. And again, in terms of the research, we wanted to unpick that a bit further in terms of the traditional indicators that were looked at. So we went to the British Red Cross, who had a vulnerability index completed, and that looked at things around loneliness, looked at things in terms of health, as well as your indicators around fuel poverty, food poverty, and so forth, educational attainment. And for us, that was really insightful because it really demonstrated some of the key issues that came forward from the workshops. So we had over 70 individuals from the community and voluntary sector and statutory bodies that participated in those workshops, and their findings really correlated with the findings in terms of the vulnerability index. So you can see in terms of the key issues in section 3 that we have now established the research and established the evidence in terms of the needs. And secondly, that we've established what level of support is already out there in terms of different agencies and the support that they're delivering. And I suppose whilst this was completed during last year, a lot of this research in terms of the workshops and the COVID was very much in terms of the response that was coming from DFC funding and so forth. But you can see that the peak in terms of some of the support that our organisations were giving out, that in some cases it actually had increased by 4 to 5 times what they would have been doing pre-COVID. So it really, really underscored that COVID itself really drew out the level of poverty that there was within our council area. So a lot of the initiatives really was to try to get to people who were vulnerable and who couldn't leave their households. But in actual fact, the people who came forward for the fuel vouchers or the food vouchers were people that were very, very, very much in need. And the research also indicated that it was a lot of people who were deemed to be working poor. So we obviously have people, children in poverty, we've older people in poverty, but we've got this new cohort that emerged very, very strongly, that were people who were on 2 incomes, who now suddenly the cost of living had increased so significantly that they were struggling. Lots of these individuals wouldn't know how to access the type of support that was out there, and also that they felt that there was a real there was a negativity around having to acknowledge that they were in need and that they were vulnerable. And so part of this research now has looked at the language around poverty and has looked at the whole terminology around vulnerability, and also try to offer insight that you can't talk about fuel poverty without talking about food poverty or clothing poverty or digital poverty. Poverty is poverty. So this week somebody might struggle to pay their food bill, but next week they'll struggle to pay their fuel bill because they just don't have enough income. So for the council, whenever they considered all of their research, all of this research, that they felt that was really important, that we really try to influence the work that was happening at a Northern Ireland level with the anti-poverty strategy. And so for that reason, we've shared this research with all government departments. And we've specifically asked the Department for Communities, the Minister, if we can have a meeting with her in terms of looking for strategic alignment between the work that we've done and also the work at a Northern Ireland level, because we really feel that targeted interventions are what are required. And secondly, we've also sent it to the co-design group, because they're the group at the minute who are looking at particular interventions that they feel that will have a meaningful impact in terms of poverty. And the third thing that we're doing is that this co-design idea in terms of all the different work that's already happening within our council area, and particularly within the strategic context of the growth partnership. So we have lots of interventions around skills and employability. We have got a very strong desire in terms of making sure that we achieve inclusiveness with the city deal and with the inclusive growth fund. So there are real opportunities within that, but also sitting alongside that are all the work that our government departments are doing from a health, from a housing, so that we want to make sure that all of those are integrated, and also with the Department for Communities. So we're asking you today to be mindful of the research, where you can make sure that that's integrated into any policy decisions or any thinking that your different agencies are involved with. And that thirdly, that in the next couple of weeks, we will have more information coming forward in terms of the co-design workshop to try to pull all of these different activities that are happening within our council area and align them so that we can have the greatest impact in terms of addressing poverty and vulnerability. And we would seek your participation and support for that. So, Chair, very happy to take any questions in respect of the research or in terms of the recommendations, and thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'm impressed with your background with the green fields. You're certainly a rural theme going on there. The one thing that I would say just to add to it would be, I think even through the rural issues group, I think it was by some of the rural councillors were actually saying there's poverty, then there's rural poverty. A person living in a rural area, not only do they have maybe, you know, but they also have the needs of transport. So their pressure is not only just on fuel and food, it's actually having transport, because with a lack of access, it can have a really damaging impact on the family. I mean, an example would be saying in an urban area, you don't have to walk 4 miles to get a pint of milk because there's always going to be a shop right and close to you. Where he lived, he says it's 4 miles there and 4 miles back. If I had to go to see a doctor or to see or to get a prescription, it was going to be a 16-mile round trip. So there is different, that whole thing around access to services in rural areas and poverty is something that maybe needs to be looked at even more, and maybe more research put into it. But look, thank you for what you presented there. And any other questions from anybody on the panel? All quiet. Well, look, as I say, thank you again to Una, and I'll pass on back to Gavin again now for issue 10.
Okay, Kenny, thanks for that. So just as we're coming to a close of today's meeting, item 10 is for members' information, and it's the launch of the draft strategic area plan 2022 to 27 from the Education Authority, and there's two parts to this. First is planning for sustainable provision, and the second launch is the draft education special education strategic area plan, same period, planning for special education provision. We know potentially this is quite a contentious area because it's about sustainable schools, and particularly, you know, today's theme has been very much about rural communities, you know, and potentially the impact that this will have on the rural communities here as well. So we're just highlighting this to members. There is a link on the letter that Kim Scott had sent to John for if anyone wants to see the documentation and the drafts. There's also an invitation to a virtual engagement session on the 14th of February at 3 o'clock, and there's the Zoom link and the password there, should anybody want to do that. Council will be responding to this by the end of April, but again, as usual, if anybody has any input or anybody wants for anything to be included, please contact Rachel on that. I know Janice Scanlon from the Department of Education is present here today, and maybe Janice might want to say a word or two.
Yes, thank you, Gavin. I mean, this is just, I'm from the Department of Education, so just I suppose for clarity, this is a plan. It's come in from the Education Authority, but this is a plan which is a collective plan from the Education Authority, the Council for Catholic Maintained Schools, and all of the education sectoral bodies. So it is a joint draft strategic plan. It's a 5-year plan for all areas across the north. So I think at this stage, this is a draft plan. It's out for consultation. I would really encourage as many people as possible to attend the virtual meeting that's due to take place, and indeed to respond to the plan. I suppose you'll have read, like the rest of us, there's been quite a lot of media attention given to the plan, and the perception that this is a plan for the closure of schools. I want to debunk that myth now. Area planning is not about closing schools. It's about maintaining and working towards a viable network of sustainable schools. Every child deserves access to good quality education provision. And in order to maintain good quality education provision, it's important that they're educated in a sustainable school. So this is not a blanket plan to close schools, absolutely not. What we want to see coming forward, the Minister has outlined her priorities for area planning, and has put that out to the Education Authority and ECMS and the sectoral bodies. The job is really to plan collaboratively and in collaboration with each other to bring forward sustainable solutions. So it's not a plan for the closure of schools. I'm happy to take any comments on it, but at this stage, it's a draft plan. No schools are named on it. And the department produced to underpin this plan a sustainability baseline report, which sets out, and there's one for each local government district. So there's one for Darian Staban, which sets out what the position is around the number of schools that are viable and sustainable, the number of schools that are not at those levels. So it outlines the sort of direction of travel in terms of the level of work that needs to be done, whether that's schools collaborating to ensure that they can provide the full entitlement framework, and that all children have access to a sustainable school. Just, I suppose, to highlight as well from the rural perspective, we have a couple of innovation labs coming up. And I know that I've asked for a number of community planning partnerships to come along to those and talk to us about a couple of things. So there's two labs. One is around an exploratory plan. So that's not an action plan. That's a plan that we can get in at an early stage, engage with stakeholders and explore what the options are in areas for sustainable solutions moving forward. And the other lab, which has yet to be designed and a date provided, but it's highly likely that it'll be April when it'll be taking place. That's a rural planning lab, and that's about looking specifically at rural areas which have different issues around accessibility and transport and things like that. So we want to get a plan specifically looking at, and a programme specifically looking at education provision in rural areas and ensuring that we don't remove education provision from towns and villages, and that we can work together to make sure that all children in rural towns and villages can have access to sustainable education provision. I think that's probably all I have to say at the minute, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, Janice. I have a couple of things. Janice, where does this sit in relation to the review of education that's currently taking place? Is there any duplication of these two processes? And then the other one as well is the 14 to 19 strategy that's also taking place as well. There seems to be a lot of reviews of potentially the same thing taking place with different bodies.
Yeah, so the independent review, I mean, I touch base with the panel on a regular basis, and it might just be of interest to know that it was me that was first up to the independent review of education to talk about area planning and moving forward. So they're well aware of the area planning procedures and processes of the bodies that are involved in area planning. If any of you have been involved in any previous development proposals or things like that, that's in statute, so that's legislation. So we have to continue planning, but we do touch base with it. It does take it takes a very long time to plan education provision. So we're in regular contact with the independent panel to let them know what the plans are and to make sure that there's nothing, I suppose, that would stand in their way of their plans, and we'll always take account of any recommendations that come forward from that independent review.
And on the 14 to 19 piece?
14 to 19 strategy, it sits with a different directorate in DE. So that's something that I can certainly take back and ask them to come back to you on that. But again, I would say they are in the same position. They will have been to the panel. The panel will be well aware of the development of the 14 to 19 strategy. So we're in regular contact with the independent review panel.
Okay, thanks for that, Janice. So, Jim, you've had your hand up for a while. I'm sure it's going to be something around the rural.
Well, yes and no. I am a member of a maintained governor's school. Sorry, I'm a governor in a maintained school, and have been a chair for several years too as well in the past. But it's part of this consultation. The Board of Governors have been asked to obviously make a response. But the point that Gavin made, there is some confusion around the different consultations. But one point that seems to be coming out as part of the brief for consultation is to ignore budgets and funding. And obviously, with EA in particular not being very financially, how would I say, wealthy, it's a question as to how is that going to be addressed within the consultation if it's suggested as it should be ignored.
I'm not aware of that communication, to be honest, that should be ignored. I would need to find out a bit more about that. I mean, there are 6 sustainability criteria, one of which is finance and a healthy financial position for the school. So that's absolutely something that a Board of Governors should be on top of and aware of. We do have a finite education budget. And we have experienced in real terms quite significant cuts to that budget. That's a matter for the executive. And our minister, my minister, continues to press the executive for more funding for education. So yeah, it's not something that I would recommend is ignored. And I think it's something that certainly does need to be factored into any consultation. We are well aware of the schools that are in financial deficit. There are a lot of them. But just because a school is in financial deficit is not a sole reason to act. You need to take it into context with the other 5 criteria in the Sustainable Schools Policy. They need to be seen in the round. Obviously, the number of children going to a school drives the budget, because we fund children, not places. So that's an important factor. You know, if you've got an enrolment that's very, very small, then it's not going to attract sufficient funding to the school to let the school run sustainably.
Janice, there's the proposal to look at targeting social needs within schools and the funding that's allocated for various schools. Bear in mind the poverty strategy that was discussed earlier on in this meeting. That's going to have a big impact too. And I understand that majority of schools, in terms of the outcome and the effectiveness of targeting school needs, budgets and spend, it hasn't been very successful. Will you be looking at some aspects of that within the consultation as well?
We're not, I mean, this is about area planning, Jim. So, you know, we're not specifically looking at the distribution of TSN funding. That's a matter for the common funding formula. So it wouldn't be something that I would be looking to in this consultation. This is about area planning and sustainable schools. It's not about the distribution of TSN funding in particular.
Yeah, I'm going back to Gavin's point on the point about being aware of other educational consultations taking place. And I think, you know, because it's all part of an educational strategy, you know, I don't think they should be separate in some respects. There needs to be a bit of cooperation and integration within there. Otherwise, you're going to come up with 3 or 4 different plans, and not one of them is paying reference to the other. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we have this is out for consultation. So if things come forward in that consultation, we will, of course, have a look at any other plans that are out there. But this one in particular, as I've said, is about ensuring that all our schools, under whatever configuration that is, that they're all sustainable. We need to work much faster to get a network of sustainable schools. How funding is distributed is a separate matter under the common funding formula. But we need to work around the size of our schools and how sustainable those schools are and the quality of the education that's provided within them.
Okay, thanks, Janice, for that. Cheers.
Okay, thanks, Jim. And of course, there's a review of the Education Authority as well. Started also. Leo, you've had your hand up
Yeah,
for a while.
okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Janice. Just a couple of things on your sustainability from the Department of Education. I declare my hand. I'm the Chief Executive of the Northwest Regional College, which is one of the 6 further education colleges in Northern Ireland. And I wish we could take the same comfort from the experiences we're having. One of the problems, I think, is your sustainability going to look seriously at unsustainable sixth forms in schools?
Yes.
Is it going to finally create a sixth form policy, which I don't believe the Department of Education currently has? And I think it could be impacting, due to your funding model, the necessity of young people to get into the proper skills pipeline for jobs. So I'm wondering, looking at things like careers guidance, which I don't know if the model's fit for purpose really, moving forward, the experience we have and access to young people to talk to them about more mature pathways. So there's a deep dive. Sustainability, I think, some people have a perception that's looking at the primary sector, and particularly, as Jim said, schools in rural communities. I think there's the deep dive required into the fact that, say, your department doesn't have a sixth form policy, and there doesn't seem to be any control over the rule book around sixth forms in post-primary schools. And I think that needs to be dealt with deeply within your review. It is currently affecting the skills pipeline of young people who should be choosing further education and apprenticeship pathways are currently not, because you basically said you fund the schools and children. So the pressure, and that's not any criticism of the school, it's a funding model. The pressure is to keep the young person in the school. And I think you take a deep dive into the entitlement data, you'll find a substantial drop of the engagement of schools in entitlement with further education in the past 10 years.
Yeah,
Thank
Leo,
you, Chair.
I agree. I agree. Thank you for that point. And we've spoken previously on that one. You're correct. A lot of our schools have sixth forms that are unsustainable. And one of the priorities that the Minister outlined in a written statement to the Assembly was that this was addressed. So it is a priority within this strategic plan that we look at unsustainable sixth forms. So, and yes, in consultation with the 14th and 19th strategy. So we do talk to each other in the department. So we're well aware of that one, and that is one that the Minister wants to be addressed in this plan as a priority, is small sixth forms. You're right, there's a lot of our sixth forms there where the pressure is to maintain children, and even with that pressure, a lot of sixth forms don't actually retain their children, and there's still small sixth forms, so we really do need to take a look at that from a sustainability point of view.
It's also leading to a potential academic drift, challenge of losing young people from this region to GB universities, who'd be better served to stay in this region doing intermediate, higher level qualifications, working through foundation degrees, and us guaranteeing them into areas where there are skill shortages. So, I mean, the model needs fixed within the school end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leo.
Gavin, you're on mute there.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. I don't see any other hands up or any other questions or comments. But Janice, look, I thank you for the time you've taken. This was only for information. It wasn't a presentation. Look, you've taken a lot of difficult and challenging questions. We know this is a very controversial topic, and it extends quite widely. There's a number of reviews going on at the minute and consultations. So look, hopefully over the next while, maybe we'll begin to see some light in the direction of where we're going. But like, I just like to remind members, it's in the pack, the letter that Kim Scott sent into John Kelpie. It includes the link to the draft plans. It also includes the link to the Zoom meeting for the engagement on Monday, the 14th of February, and would welcome as many people as possible to attend that and to be part of it. Council will respond to this in time, and of course, please come back with your comments and feedback as appropriate. And Janice will be able to take all that information on board at some stage going forward. And sure, maybe in the future, at some stage, Janice, maybe you'll come back and present the outcomes, whenever we know what the outcome of all those investigations and consultations are. So Janice, thank you very much for that, and hopefully members can feedback. So that concludes that element. I don't see any other comments at this stage. Yeah, okay. So dates for our next meetings, they're There's the two dates, the 17th of June, 10 o'clock. Hopefully that won't be virtually. Hopefully we'll be able to meet somewhere at some stage and we'll get to see everybody in person. So those two dates, and that's the 21st of October as well as the one after that. Okay. So finally, moving on to item 12. Any other business? I have one item of business. Professor Scott would like to come back and just update us on the presentation that the Vice Chancellor had given us at the last meeting. So there's a few things that she'd like to update. I don't have any other items of any other business apart from that. So Terry, over to you.
Thank you, Gavin. And I had my hand up under matters arising, but it just wasn't picked up earlier. So thank you for allowing me to come back in at this point. If I may, just picking up on Leo's point, first of all, just leading in from Leo's comment in terms of the foundation degrees, I think it's very important to remember when we're talking about university level education that we have some 530 students in Northwest Regional College that are taking university courses, as Gavin and Leo will well know. But I think that's an important point. So sometimes it's lost in the discussion between the foundation degrees, as Leo has pointed out, and also the access programs, which are a very important part of the widening participation agenda. But if I may just peg back to the matters arising, Chair, at the last meeting of the Strategic Growth Partnership, and I wasn't present, I've just joined the university in the last few months, so I'm delighted to be here today and delighted to be back in Derry. Professor Bartholomew, our Vice-Chancellor, and was joined with senior colleagues to speak to a substantive item. I'm sure many of the people on this call were present. So that's just a few moments, Gavin, to follow up. Because since then, the UCAS applications for undergraduate entry closed on the 26th of January. And that's a really important deadline. And I'm sure those of you that are parents will be well tuned into that, parents of sixth formers. But I'd like to just share some of the headlines. There's a lot of analysis goes on at universities once that first week, that closing date comes in. And so first of all, the university members on this group will be aware of the university's strategic commitment to move the health sciences courses to Magee. So if we take out the health sciences applications to Magee, our applications are up 17% for the same period last year. And if you include the health sciences courses being offered in Derry for the first time, we're actually up applications to the university, and this isn't including the applications to AFDs in Northwest Regional that I mentioned earlier. So the applications are up 30%, 30.2% actually. So it bodes well for the additional places, not just in health sciences, but because you will be aware from Professor Bartholomew's presentation that the applications to this is the first year with the medical school and the BSc in paramedical sciences, and both those courses have a significant, a really healthy increase in numbers. And as you know, those numbers are capped by the Department of Health. So the applications for nursing and social work are also buoyant, and we predict that we'll be able to take the 400. Repeat last year's entry of we had 427 nursing students that started this year, and we expect to be able to do that next year. But many of those applicants that I've mentioned in terms of that 30% increase, Chair, will apply elsewhere. And this is why I want to bring it to the attention of this group, because it's a priority for the university, and I hope an interest for every other stakeholder that we're engaging in a series of activities and events in the coming months to convert those applications to places so that those individuals will take up a place in September 2022. So that will be a range of a whole range of promotional events, but engagement activities, because we've got a great portfolio of courses. As we've said, it's expanding. The quality of provision is coming out top at every external benchmarks. We have a top class student experience for students that come to the city and region, and promoting the Derry and its region as a university destination is really important, and it's vital that we get everybody behind that. So that's sort of a plea to this group. The university is committed to working with everybody to ensure we deliver this collective ambition. And, you know, you'll all know there's a myriad of factors that influence choices that young people and older people will make when they're choosing their choice of course and what university to study at. And I mean, if you take those health sciences courses that have moved from Belfast, from Jordanstown to our Magee campus, there actually is an increase this year. Now, you might be aware that with, you know, the pandemic and all the things around that, there's been a big increase in health sciences courses across the board. So, you know, we're picking that up with these courses, and that's very, very positive. So we're up 33% in our health courses, health sciences courses from last year. And also just to remind folks that the closing dates are not over yet for our part-time and postgraduate courses. So, you know, those are the programs that are not capped, and we've very ambitious plans. Albeit that international students' fees are impacted by Brexit, but it is really important that that we use every opportunity through our stakeholder engagement to promote the city and region as a destination. So thank you. I'm sorry somebody started banging in the background there just towards the end. So thank you. Back to you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions on
Thank
that.
you, Terry, and that's some very positive news there, and it's very welcome. You know, and it'll be small incremental steps, but that's quite significant. So that's very, very good news, and thank you for that. And you're very welcome back in the city. On behalf of the partnership, Terry, we're delighted that you're going to join the partnership and will be a regular attender. So, look, I know you've a great passion for the city, and we wish you well in your new role, and we look forward to working with you over the next number of years, and hopefully continue to get some good news updates like you've just given us. So thank you for that. I see one hand raised. John has his hand up. So John.
Thanks, Chair, and echo your comments, Chair, to Terry, and look forward to continuing to work with you, Terry, in your new role. That's such good news to hear that. And I am hearing your plea that we work together to convert those applications into actual students at Magee. I'm sure you're aware, Terry, that we have a whole host of collateral, marketing collateral, promotional collateral in relation to the city and district, videos, social media, pieces, clips, statistics, all sorts of documentation that we've either unilaterally as a council or more likely developed in partnership with yourselves and others across the city and district. So any and all of that is available to yourselves if it's of any benefit. And I know that Ulster themselves actually make and have made first class videos and promotional videos and material to attract students. So look, I suppose just from a council perspective, we're open to any suggestion at all that can help in converting some of those applications into places or into confirmations. I'm happy to take this as an offline conversation with some of our team if you think there's anything further that we can do.
Thank you, John, and we really appreciate the work and the partnership that has gone on to date. But, you know, this is a real step change. And, you know, in addition to ensuring that we provide the access and the pathways for those that want to stay at home, but we also need to attract a lot of people to come and study in the city from you know, across, and the increasing thing is, sorry, the important thing there is that we also have an increase of students coming from the south in this year. So you know, that plays out a different way because they will be in another system, but it's a small increment. But you know, the increase in health sciences is a game changer for the city. But we also have new master's programs, pathways in data analytics and international business, and they're very much targeting the international student market. So it is very positive news, but you know, to deliver on it, we will need to work in partnership with a wider group of stakeholders because everybody will benefit.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
And I'll pick up with John. Very happy to do that, John, and with your team, and to make sure that we can get the optimal return.
Jim?
Yeah, again, welcome back to City,
Terry. It's a couple of years since we met, but and best of luck in your new role. Just an observation. I involved with a couple of community groups, and it came up the other day about accommodation for students, which is much demand in the city. And you mentioned there recently about other students coming from Jordanstown now. Have you broken out those applications in terms of people coming from outside the city and would eventually be seeking accommodation, and the availability of such accommodation, because it is obviously a factor with regard to new students?
Thank you, Jim. That's a very good question. And the answer is yes, we have, as part of the planning. The university have been looking very carefully at that. Obviously, we've only just got the information at the end of January through UCAS on the new students. But those students that are moving as part of the internal consultation process, working with the students, with TransLink and others, to ensure that we have those that want to commute. So we have been looking at the students, some students who are going into final year, who previously would have taken accommodation in Belfast and they live closer to Magee, are choosing are choosing to live from home. So there's a myriad of, a number of different solutions. But there's 300 second years and 300 third years who started off in Magee and who started off in Jordanstown and be moving to Magee. So, and roughly about 300 first years. So that's where the number comes from in terms of the increase in the health sciences programs of the courses that are moving. I mean, the university, as you know, has its own student residence village over in Duncragan and plans to expand that. But we're currently working with our campus life teams are working with a number of solutions for next year to see where we can get, because it's going to take time to build new student residences. They're not going to be ready for September, and some of that, there's going to be a number of options put forward, and that will include private sector investment and potential for collaboration, as we've done elsewhere.
Okay, thanks for that, Terry. Again, good luck. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim.
Okay,
good to see you.
I don't see any other hands, so I think we'll just draw that to close. I think it'd just be appropriate just to remind members in that offer from the Vice-Chancellor to go through those Mazen numbers on either the 23rd or the 24th, but Rachel or Colin will be in contact with members. But it'd be good if as many people, particularly those who are interested around how the Mazen is worked out and the implications that it has. It's a very generous offer from the Vice-Chancellor to take his time to take members through that. So hopefully we'll get a good response to that and for a good number of people to attend that in Magee. So I think that's everything for today. So I'll just bring today's meeting to a close. I thank everybody for their presence, and anybody who was involved in any presentation. Thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing everybody hopefully in real life in June. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Gavin.